Hi, everyone. I'm coming because there's a lot of talking going on about the Tasha K and Cardi B lawsuit. Okay. So let's preface this with saying that I had no idea who Tasha K is until I watched her interview. Well, actually, I first saw people tweeting about an interview that she was doing with Ariane Curry, who is the baby mama and um mistress of, she doesn't like to be called side chick, but okay, mistress of Martell Holt from Love and Marriage Huntsville. And I was like, where is Ariane Curry doing this interview? And so I dug around and then I noticed that she was doing an interview with this woman named Tasha K. Now, Tasha K has like 1 million followers. And it's funny because all these years, and even up until now, she never really uh, crossed my peer review. But I will also mention that I have listened to a few YouTubers that are outside of, like, I usually listen to more like Funky Dineva or Blondie or Bondi Blue or the Scorpion Show or Justin Justin Reeds and stuff like that. And so there were a few other YouTubers that I would listen to occasionally because they give you your recommends. And I didn't continue to follow them. And I think I mentioned one of them that blew up in the sense that you never got to see her face. And then she had all these people who would come and talk. And then I think I'm and then they kind of quit on her. It became this really bad situation. I think I mentioned it in the previous video, and it became like this huge other conversation. And she tried to add other people to it. But the reason why I didn't like, I mean, I listened to it occasionally. Number one, the shows are too long. And then number two, I listened to some of them. And the problem that I had with even that format is that they they would come up with these hypotheticals about what's happening about certain people and or certain people in different TV shows. And they'd be like, yeah, I know he's cheating and he got a side chick and he doing this and he doing that. And they had no proof. And I would, and to me, it's like, yeah, I can hypothesize about what's happening. I can analyze about a show. I'm cool with analyzing about reality TV and giving my opinion and stuff like that. But it's a fine line from analyzing to like making up these elaborate stories about these people and not considering that these aren't like characters, they're actual like people. And you shouldn't just come up with these random character. You can't just come to these conclusions about different people without like evidence and proof. So I tuned out of those kind of shows. And so for Tasha K, I actually began to listen to some of her other interviews. Some of her other interviews are pretty interesting. Like she interviewed Nini's side dude who went online and posted all these pictures of her and he claims he didn't post her. Okay. So, and then I was like, well, that's kind of janky. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, in the sense that yes, men gossip and they claim they don't gossip, but are you really about to sit here and do a whole interview and say I'm not that dude? And but you are that dude because you're doing an interview about being about dating a woman. And I just find that to be really, really ridiculous. So I've listened to some of her interviews, and to me, it's like, okay, this is kind of cool. But then I listened to like her show where she does all this show with all this different tea. And I was like, I don't think I can stomach this, because she goes too far in some of her shows. And granted, it's entertaining. She's entertaining by far, but it's a little too far for me. And so I struggled with it. So I guess years ago, so there's some things that I was like, I struggle with this. She did this one interview about a friend of Bobby's. And to me, I was like, you don't have to show me proof that you used to be a friend of Bobby's, because anybody, I can hit somebody up in the DMs and say, oh yeah, girl, I used to be friends with such and such, and we used to do such and such. And I don't have to show you evidence that I used to do X, Y, and Z. And so before she puts these people on the show, and I have a strong problem with friends of friends. Oh yeah, we used to do this. Oh yeah, that's not her car. Oh yeah, that dude, he ain't like that. He put this. And it's like, you coming up with all these detailed T scenarios. Fine. That's what you want to do. I'm cool with that. But the only issue that I mean, that's what you want to do. But the problem that I have with you pulling up all these T scenarios, these are people we've never seen before. We have no idea who they are. They're not providing a text message thread. They're not providing a receipt. There's no picture. So it's very difficult for you to be having these interviews. And then when she wants to do these snapbacks, I'm snapping back at this person, snapping back at that person. I guess that's cool. But some of her snapbacks, I'm like, that is cruel. And when you're implying that people have AIDS and HIV and they're gay, to me, that's a cruel thing to do, especially if you do not know if they absolutely have that. Do you have a test? And so to me, I guess back in the day, I don't know what she's like back in the day, because I didn't go through all her videos, but back in the day, I guess she really made some statements out there that were a little very inflammatory about Cardi B. Cardi B over the years have been trying to get trying to get Tasha to take down the videos. She specified the videos. She's been trying to do, and she was saying all this stuff when the girl was pregnant, and she didn't care. And the problem, so she didn't take down the videos. She didn't want to retract, and even she didn't want to even kind of do a retraction. And it's just and and you could tell that Cardi B tried to remediate the situation in many, many different ways. And because they didn't remediate, she decided not to remediate the situation in all of these different ways. The last resort was to sue. And it was like, but why would you go through a lawsuit when you could have just took down the videos out of respect for number one, don't put the video up. And I'm going to say that I did not go through all of her thousands of videos to figure out which video it is. And when in one of her more recent videos before this trial started, she said that was not, that she didn't say what she's being accused of saying. And when you do when you do thousands and thousands of videos over the years, you probably do not remember what you said. And so I have 2 points of clarity here. And I'm going to draw it back to, when I was in high school. When I was in high school, I was freshman year in high school. The first thing I wanted to do, I always wanted to work on the yearbook. At my private school, I was never good enough to work on the yearbook. It was a white private school. They never had a Black person working on the yearbook at the time that I went to this private school. And my mother kept pushing the private school to be like, should you really have a competition to be on the yearbook staff? Why wouldn't you get, she tried to go through this. This is not even if it's sports, you really should in junior high be trying to nurture any child with talent. They're like, no, fine. So when I went to high school, the first thing I did was I decided to go in the yearbook. Um, so I was on the yearbook staff for like a year. I didn't like it. And I moved over to the newspaper, and I did like that. I did not like the person who was over the newspaper though. So I became this freelance writer and freelance photographer for the entire school. For the yearbook, they didn't put me on staff, but they used my photos. They didn't put me on staff for, I did all the development. I did, and I just really went hard in photography in high school. Like I did a bunch of photography classes. I would just stay at, I did Cal Arts. And part of me is like, I may think about doing that as for the summer anyway, because I do want to get back into the hobby. It's just that it's obsessive because it's something I really, really love doing. And I know that it can be excessive, expensive, and obsessive. Anywho, all that being said, um, my senior year in high school, I told my junior and senior year in high school, um, my teacher, econ and political science teacher, I would love to have seen her today. I think she's still alive. I think she'd get a kick out of the fact that I'm a political science professor. Anyway, she told me, when we're going through where are you going to college, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, my dream school was Syracuse. I don't know. I've been wanting to go to Syracuse since I was like in junior high school, 12 years old. My mother was taking me to college fairs, and I was like, Syracuse, and then the Ducks. Oregon, University of Oregon was my two. Syracuse was my first. I was really into, anywho. So Syracuse being my top one, I decided to, and I did get into Syracuse, but you got to remember that the way that you do college admissions back in the time I went to college is that there was no online application. So you have to submit an application. You got to send letters to these people. Then they send you the application back, and then you kind of correspond this way. So, and then you got to submit your application, and then you got to go that way. So I submitted my application. I didn't submit my application until my sophomore year in college because they didn't send me my application on time. They sent me all 3 applications they claimed to have sent me after the due date. So my freshman year, so my senior year, junior and senior year, I told my high school, she's going through, what are we going to be, what's going to be your major? And I was like, econ and journalism. And she's like, journalism? Nobody goes to school for journalism. And then so she started to name some of the people who they didn't go to school for journalism. They went to college for X, Y, and Z. You don't need a college degree for journalism. And I was like, and I didn't get offended by what she said because, and I don't know, even back then I didn't get offended. I just kept thinking, you don't know anything because the people that you're naming, I think it's Ed Bradley, if I'm not mistaken. That man is old. He was old when I was in high school. He probably didn't have journalism school. That's why he didn't go to journalism school. And so I wrote my first publication outside of high school and school for the Pasadena Star newspaper. And I was 15, 16. I can't remember which year. And why am I saying all this? Is because I did go to journalism school at Pepperdine. And And even though I did not become a journalist, I had to write for the paper, and I don't teach journalism. I am not an advisor, a faculty advisor for journalism. I may consider it, but I'm gonna let you know right now, woosah, because I'm not, journalism is an acquired taste. It's not that I don't, but here's the irony. I do use my journalism degree in the sense that, now I do, in journalism, when I was in college, we actually even had to go through and code websites and begin this. It was the starting point of before Flash took over. Flash websites, and now Flash is not like the way that it used to be when it comes to coding. But I used to have to do all of that, the coding of websites, it was beginning digital cameras, but I really didn't want to do digital, but that was the wave that was beginning to take place. I was still kind of stuck in my photography. And why am I bringing all this up? Is because in journalism school, 101 is this: check your resources. And if you are lying on someone and you have no resources, like credible proof, not she said that she has, oh, I saw such and such. No, if you're going to say something that somebody has a medical disease, then you better have medical records, and you better be sure that you are not going to be even legally liable for having somebody's medical records or opening up a liability for the person who gave you the medical records, because that can actually take place. Me as a journalist can write about somebody's medical record if I have it. That may be an ethical issue because I'm not sure if I'm willing to do that. But if you do decide that ethically I don't care, then you better have the correct documentation to back that up. And if you don't have the correct documentation to back that up, then you need to walk away. And I say that because, especially with STDs, there's a couple things. Like STDs is a one up there. And an STD, especially the history of STDs and the stigma around it, the stigma around AIDS and HIV currently, the stigma around herpes, the stigma around almost all STDs, but definitely the ones you can never get rid of, is damning. And on top of that, especially for AIDS and HIV, she didn't say anything about that, but I'm just saying she has alluded to that for other people. That AIDS and HIV claim, by calling somebody dirty blood, that can ruin a person's career. And I'm gonna give you an example. Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen has HIV, and he was getting bribed for years about the fact that he had HIV. I do feel some sort of way the fact that he had HIV and would still go on, he was still acting and still interacting with people who did not know that he had HIV. Granted, I don't know, he was on set with people. But, and I don't know if he needs to tell people who are on set, but the kind of role that he played on 2.5 Men, you would think that he would, he may disclose it. So, because just in case if people aren't comfortable. But at the same token, and also for health reasons, just in case if somebody if he was to have been injured on set. But He's like, look, I'm coming out and I'm going to tell my own truth because you're not going to continue to bribe me and try to, tell everyone that I have AIDS and HIV, that I have HIV, and, and try to sue me to make it seem like I endangered you. Like he, and so he went out and told his truth, which I respect that. I don't respect people who make decisions to try to strong arm people and try to bribe. And it came back on haunting that young lady who wanted to do that to Charlie Sheen. And, the case was dismissed. But you haven't seen Charlie Sheen act that since then. And I'm not saying it's by choice. I don't know if it's by choice or if it's um or if it's uh because people may struggle with wanting to work with him. But it can be career ending in certain careers, and it ended Magic Johnson's career in basketball. People didn't want to play with him. Karl Malone, which I never can like again. I never liked him in the first place, but I mean, that's a whole nother story. I don't want to go there. Karl Malone is one of those people who never wanted to play with Magic Johnson because he had AIDS. I'm sorry, he had HIV. The point is, saying that people have a venereal disease is harmful and it is unethical. And that is 101 journalism school. And so people come on YouTube because it is difficult to do YouTube, to try to, I mean, you got to be pumping out video after video. You need to be, you need to be, this is a business. I currently am not in this business. I just like to do this for fun. And it's entertaining and it's cool. But I'm not trying to make this my job. And because people are trying to make this their job, they have to get clicks, they have to do whatever. And I think one of the issues is that people have disrespected the field of journalism, and anybody with a voice can all of a sudden just decide to come on the internet, do a blog, do a video, start a page, start a whatever, and now all of a sudden be called a journalist. Because why do you need to go to school? And they disrespect the field because anybody can get into it. And let's be clear, everybody's not a journalist. They pretend like they're giving the news, then they call themselves journalists. And it's like, my dear, you're not a journalist. And I think we need to start giving people respect. And if you want to enter into the field of journalism, I encourage you to either, if you can't afford to go to school, that's fine. Read a book. Do some studying so that when you're becoming a journalist in this space, and when you're on YouTube and you're want to commenting on here's the news and here's the tea and here's I want to interview people and here I want to do all this, then you should get some tips and understanding your craft and being better at it, and knowing 101 is journalism 101 class states you better have sources before you report on it. Number 2 says you need to make sure that your sources are verified before you report on it. And I think that this Tasha incident should lead people to ask bigger questions and have greater responsibility on a few things. And number 1 responsibility is that you really do need to try your best to be accurate. And as accurate as possible. And don't do allegedly, because nobody listens to allegedly. And I'm gonna tell you another thing, nobody puts in those the top of the video allegedly. They put the title of the celebrity and they say whatever they want to say. You need to stop saying allegedly as trying to promote your, trying to say whatever you want to say so that you won't get sued. No, allegedly, if you still do harm, if you know for a fact that that story was not going to be accurate and you just slap an allegedly on top of it, it does not circumvent the fact that you are promoting and her, a continual lie in order for clicks and views at the detriment of somebody else. And that is, and it makes you, and National Enquirer has been sued and lost. The Sun in Great Britain has been sued and lost. But the difference between those people and the people on YouTube is that they have deep pockets. You don't. So you do want to be, I think that people need to be careful, and people should be held more accountable, and just words matter. And especially when you build up this huge following, words matter. Your career, your credibility matters. Will people stop watching Tasha? Probably not. I mean, there is some growth with her. I think there's some things that have been extremely credible. I think that there are some things that she has said that are actually point on. She did an interview with Little Mo that I thought was really informative and useful. She did an interview with Funky Dineva, which was Funky being upset. So, I mean, we just need to be better stewards of our reputation and of our care for one another. And on that note, I'm going to leave. Tomorrow, I am going to come back with a book review, and I'm going to combine the book review with the TV show, Women of the Movement. I think those two would be, the book review and Women of the Movement is a nice little tie-in. So I'm going to do that tomorrow. Have a great evening and talk to you later.